All right, so this is day four of my ambitious 30 days of interviews with men in recovery for National Recovery Month. And here I have joining me a friend that I've known now for some time, who I met at a conference in Missouri in a breakout workshop I was doing when maybe, I don't know, 20 people showed up and just had a very spirited conversation with David Brown. And I've gotten to respect you so much as a man, as a father, um, and for the leadership you're showing not only in Kansas City, but as a real outspoken voice for family-based intervention around the country and even outside of the country. So, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Dan. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, really, we start every question or every conversation the same with the same question, and that is, what is the greatest gift that recovery has given you for being the man you always felt you were supposed to be?
The answer to the question is easy. It's family. If you told me in 1982 that I would have been able to get the gifts of life that have seemed to have come to me, I would not have ever been able to imagine where that was going to come from.
One of the stories of your personal journey that has been very powerful for me to watch has been the reconnection of you with your sons.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you could say a little bit more about that, because I believe when I first met you, there had just been a conversation with the son you had not spoken to in years, maybe decades. And so I feel like it's been a real privilege for me to be a very small part of that journey as you've been experiencing it, having gotten to know you at such a critical part of that evolution, and now even being friends with one of your sons on Facebook.
Right.
Me. So
the interesting thing is that in 1971, my life appeared as though everything was kind of cool. I was living in India, and I was the best rugby player in Bombay, and I was the cock of the walk, and I was drinking socially, and I was behaving myself, and I was working hard. And then it all cavitated. And like so many other men, when something like that cavitates out of left field, totally unexpected, and we are so ill-equipped to deal with any part of that, my method of dealing with it was denial and kind of submerging this fact as deeply as I can to pretend it had not happened. Long story short, I did many things. I did therapy. I didn't do therapy consistently. I saw our minister, and he had some interesting insights on it. I talked to people I trusted. I told my teenage children. I practiced talking about it. And one of the things that happened was the minister said, you could expend a lot of energy in trying to find them. But the problem is, just imagine you wander into their life and they tell you they don't want you in their life, and they rebuff you again. Then you're going to traumatize yourself again. And I said, so what do I do about it? He said, you pray about it. You pray about it. You give it to God, and you put it where it should be. And I was often good at that, and sometimes I was not so good at that. Got into therapy and did some really interesting work with regard to CBT and figuring out how to deal with it. And I learned how to deal with it. It was never comfortable, but at least it wasn't holding me hostage in the way that it had held me hostage.
And
So
of course, sorry to interrupt, but of course, CBT being cognitive behavioral therapy.
yes. So fast forward to 2009, which was now 38 years after the impact, after the effect. Um, my mother died, and shortly before she died, she said she had a feeling that the kids were going to show up. And lo and behold, in March of 2010, that happened. And it's been a journey, you know. It's like you start a relationship with two children who are already over 40. Paul has been a pleasure to deal with because he's inquisitive and he wants to be involved. My daughter, my daughter Sharon doesn't want to be involved. She lives in Miami and she has her life, and that's okay. I at least know today where she is. Paul has been a journey in that we have these two men who have both been traumatized by exactly the same situation and have tried manfully to deal with it from their own perspective. And sometimes it's easy, and sometimes it's very difficult because there's no track record, there's no history. And I believe that Paul imagines that this is too good to be true and that I will disappear again. The good news is that he has made some lifestyle decisions for himself and is doing the work that he needs to do for himself. And it's interesting because he's doing that work and it has actually made communication between us almost more difficult because we're no longer living in the Mary Poppins world of this rebirth, this reunion. So he asks really difficult questions. But I'm well enough and I'm healthy enough to be able to answer those. So it's been great. I've seen him 7 times this year. And the fact that he's in my life is like, are you kidding? This is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. But then, you know, I have to change. I have to always imagine, I have to always remember that I have 3 amazing children from this marriage to Lucy. And these children teach me a lot. They hold me accountable. They're very healthy. And sometimes they're too healthy because they ask me questions that I don't want to answer. So I've gone the full gambit with all of this thing. You know, my other son Nick lives in Oakland. He is 42, never married. Suspect impacted by my alcoholism because he was the kid that was in the middle of it when I got clean and sober. And we have a relationship which is when we're together, it's great, but we don't see each other much, and that's okay too. And I hope that works for him. So I think always that there's more to be revealed in the future. You know, it's like I just show up and give it my best shot. I think the thing that, so here's where you and I relate, I think. So if you go back to Missouri in that conference you were working, Lucy had gone up to Hazelden to do some professional work. And she came home with a book. And the book was your book, Men's Guide Through the 12 Steps. And I picked it up and I began to read it. And I suddenly realized that this was the book that had been missing in my lexicon for so long, because it was talking in a manner which helped me understand the transition from who I was to the transition of who I wanted to become. And early on in the book, your description with regard to what men look like and what a man looks like, and we're meant to drink hard, fight hard, have the best women, and never talk about it. and then sort of transferring that over to being honest, working in community, admitting powerlessness, and things like that. I got that. I finally, this guy knows me. This guy understands me. So I can remember talking to you in kind of a starstruck manner in Missouri, because this is the guy that read the book, that wrote the book that I'm talking to. You know, it's like, whoa, Lucy, guess who I met? You know, and we've come a long way. And just think about who we are today and where we are today, because, you know, I've watched your career take off. And in the same period of time, you watched me do things which 6, 7 years ago would have not been on my agenda, because I wouldn't have dared greatly enough to do those things. You know? And of course, we have to also both, you know, you and I were in a conference in Denver, and in exactly the, well, probably not in exactly the same way. I watched you go through a moment in your life after being exposed to Brené Brown on a Friday. I watched you handle that. I watched you deal with that. And I watched you put up a presentation the day after. And I thought, wow, this guy, he's a standard bearer. He's showing me how to do this, you know. So Lucy and I both engaged very, very vigorously in the Brené work, and we've become both leader certified to put on the Daring Way training. And between your book and her work, there is no excuse for me to stand still. None. So here I am at the age of 72. I've done 380 interventions. I'm a licensed counselor. I have some background in sex addiction. I do the Daring Way. And for the first time in my life, I am really, really hungry for the kind of information that is going to help me make a difference with one alcoholic or addict. At the same time, understanding that most of the people that we deal with, you know, we look at the things that are on the surface, and then we learn to ask the question, well, what else happened? What else happened? What else was going on in your life? You know, it used to absolutely bewilder me that people could behave with people in the way that they do. But it no longer bewilders me, because it's like, I have a client now who tells his story of being molested as a child, and it's like, that's not fair, but I'm going to help you, you know. So the things that we do are amazing. I have never ever felt as fortunate, as grateful, as whatever. You know, this is amazing work we do.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me in this conversation and joining me on this this journey of this month for National Recovery Month. And I know that's always been an important piece for you, and that's also brought us together.
Yep.
Pretty clearly to me, the word of the day is family.
Yep.
And that's how we started off, and that's how we'll end it. So I like to give the men that I spend time with in these videos the last word. So I just want to again thank you. I love that, you know, the beauty of recovery is that we always say it's never too late. It's never too late. It's never too late to have the life you always wanted. It's never too late to repair the relationships you've lost. It's never too late to dream and step into those dreams. It's never too late for anything. And it's been wonderful to watch you step into that authentic experience and risk, and like you said, to dare greatly. So thank you for for sharing that, and take us home with final thoughts.
A couple of weeks ago, I was sitting in my office, and a friend that I met at UCASAD 2 years ago, who's a psychiatrist in Singapore, called me and he said, I need your help. I said, what do you need my help with? He said, my keynote speaker, my American speaker, has called me today and he can't make this conference in Malaysia in September. He said, can you come? I said, absolutely. And I said, when is it? He said, September the 15th, 16th, 17th. I said, I'll be there. And of course, as soon as I said that, I'm thinking, what did I just commit to? Can I afford to go? And a few minutes later, Lucy came to me and she said, I just got the strangest invitation for a conference in Malaysia. I think I should go. I said, well, I've been invited too. How about if we both go? And then a few minutes later, he called and he said, oh, by the way, I am taking care of your expenses, which I had not really thought about. But if you had told me 5 years ago that anybody would be interested in listening to anything that I would have to say about addiction, it would have been why or how. But it's part of the curiosity that I go about the work that we do. I did a presentation last week for First Call in Kansas City on the opiate epidemic. And there was one statistic in there that absolutely told me why we have to do the work we do. 46,171 people wiped out by the epidemic in 1 year. And I was trying to get a grip of what 46,171 looks like. That's the capacity of Busch Stadium in St. Louis. Suddenly wiped out. And it's like, that's why you and I can never, ever sit still as long as we have breath, because I think that we have a sacred responsibility to do the work that we do.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and Godspeed in Malaysia, carrying the message.
Talk to you soon, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.